Joseph comes forward and says, my Lord can help me understand your dream. Tell me the story. So they tell him the story. He says to the one person, you are going to be found innocent and restored to your position. And he says that to the butler. He says to the cook, on the other hand, you're going to be found guilty and they're going to string you up and hang you. Well, the next day, they come in and sure enough, they grab the cook and they hang him. And they take the butler and they free him and restore him back into his position. Time passes. The Pharaoh has a dream that is extraordinary. The Pharaoh has a dream that he knows he's got to remember, but he can't remember the dream. But he knows it's a big-time dream. And he calls all of his wise men in and says, please, help me remember what the dream is. And they say, well, we can't do that. You've got to tell us the dream and then we can interpret it. But we can't tell you what the dream is. He says, well, who's ever wise enough to be able to remember my dream for me, great possibilities for him. Well, they're stymied. They can't. And then the butler, wait a minute. There was a guy when I was in prison who interpreted dreams correctly. Bring him in. So they bring Joseph the prisoner in front of the Pharaoh. And he says, I hear you, Joseph, interpret dreams. And Joseph says, no, sir, I don't. But the Lord God can guide me and give me the interpretation of dreams, but I have no power whatsoever. Well, the Pharaoh says, well, would you please ask your Lord to remember the dream for me? So Joseph goes off, takes a few minutes. Lord, I need a little help here. Then he goes in front of the Pharaoh and says, okay, I can remember the dream for you. You dreamed that there were 7 fat cows grazing by the river. And then 7 scrawny, skinny cows came out of the river and ate the 7 fat cows. And the Pharaoh says, that's it. That's the dream. That's the dream I dreamed. Then he says, can the Lord God who gave you the memory to remember the dream interpret the dream for me? Joseph says, yes, just give me a few minutes. Come back. Okay. He says, the dream means this. There will be 7 years of plenty, great harvest, great plenty throughout the land. And there will be followed by 7 years of famine, unbelievable famine. Pharaoh says, ooh. Now, can the God who helped you remember the dream and the God who helped you interpret the dream give you the wisdom to know what to do about it? And Joseph says, yes, he would give me the wisdom to know it. Then he says, from this day forward, you're the prime minister of Egypt, second only to me in all the land. Now, at this time, Egypt is the most powerful nation in the world. He's now the second most powerful man in the material world of that day. And what he does is build granaries, where for the 7 good years they store the grain, preparing for the time of famine. And they have so much grain that they've got grain to outlast them for 20 some odd, for years and years beyond the 7 years. So Egypt is now wealthy with extra food. Meanwhile, back in Israel, the family doesn't know about this, so they endure the 7 good years, just live high on the hog, but they don't manage to save anything. And when the 7 bad years, they don't have anything. Oh, they're in desperate shape, but they find out Egypt is selling grain. So Jacob calls his sons in and he says, boys, I want you to go back to Egypt and trade for some good food. Meanwhile, Rachel has had a second son. His name is Benjamin. He says, now, the 10 of you can go, but Benjamin stays here. I'm not going to let Benjamin go with the likes of you guys. I know what happened the last time, that there was one of my sons went with you yokels. So you go get the food and come back. So the 10 boys take off. Now, when they get to Egypt, and they go to present their case that they want to buy food, they remember Joseph as a scrawny little kid, 17 years old, and here's a full-grown man in all his regalia, so they can't recognize him, but he recognizes them immediately. And he says, bring those yokels over here by me. I want to question them. He says, are you sure you guys aren't spies from a foreign power? No, sir, we're just humble farmers, but we're very desperate for food, and our father sent us here. And he says, well, just to make sure you're not spies, tell me, who's your father? Well, his name is Jacob, and tell me about your mother and your aunts. And he's getting them to tell him what's going on, what's been going on for the last 20 years, So the boys shared the stories, and then they mentioned, yes, and then our aunt Rachel had another son. Now this son becomes Joseph's full brother. All the other brothers are half brothers, but this is a full brother. And this really makes Joseph excited. I've got a brother, a full brother. His name is Benjamin. So he says, okay, boys, I'll tell you, I'm going to believe you this time. I'm going to send you away with all the grain you need. But the next time, when you run out of food, and the next time you come here, you better bring Benjamin, or I'm not selling you one bit of food. It's either Benjamin or nothing. I want to see if you guys are really telling the truth. So they go back home, and of course they use up the food, and then he comes around. They go to Jacob and say, Jacob, Dad, we got to go back and get more food, but that guy, that prime minister guy, he said if we come back without Benjamin, he won't believe us, and he won't sell us any food. And Jacob says, no. I'm not letting Benjamin go into you guys' hands. I know better than to do that. No, Dad, you don't understand. It's all or nothing. We either have to take him or starve. So finally, they persuade Jacob. He says, now you guys, I'm telling you, don't you come back here without your brother. Whatever happens, don't even think of coming back here if you don't have Benjamin with you. He's really making it clear. So the boys take off. Well, they arrive. And of course, Joseph can barely contain himself. He asks, let the young man come sit next to me. And he asks him all kinds of questions. And he really loves his brother Benjamin. And then it comes time to leave. He invites him for supper. And he says, you guys are good guys. You told the truth, this and that.